Okay, welcome back to Hangar 51. So today we're going to start the build video on the F4U Corsair from LX Models. So let's look at the manual first real quick, because there's really nothing to see in here. There are a few some of the pictures are going to be a little helpful once, here and there. But it's probably going to be more confusing than helpful. Because like I was saying in my unboxing, this manual is designed for people that bought the kit version that nothing's done. And you have to build everything. I mean, there's nothing pre-assembled. You got to put the landing gear in it. You got to put the lights in it. You got to put the servos in it. You got to, and none of that, all that's done already. So there's going to be a lot of areas you're just going to skip over because they're not relevant. So you can go back to this book for reference. There's nice pictures in here. They're pretty small, but you might be able to use some of it. I wouldn't say it's totally it's not useless, but I don't think you're going to find a lot of help here. So I wouldn't get too excited about relying on this. I think my build video is going to be way more helpful. So I'm still kind of concerned about how badly this part of it is, because from what I see, they don't even touch on that motor box at all, and that just surprises me that there's not. I mean, I thought the same thing on the P40, and then I did find where there was a picture of a red box, little red square with a white S in it, and which means the S is supposed to be up, but it doesn't say that or anything. You're just supposed to, but this doesn't even have that in it. So yeah, just I don't even bother looking at this too much. I mean, you can open it up and kind of run through it, but I think you'll be more confused running through that than you will just watching my video here. So hopefully, anyway, I'm pretty sure you're gonna like this a lot better. So first thing I like to do is kind of, not really inventory, but just kind of get my stuff laid out so I know what I have, and I kind of go through it to figure out where everything goes, so it just makes it easier to go along. So in your goodie bag, you've got this this bag that's full of all the little bits, and it's all inventoried on the front of the bag, which is kind of cool, actually. So it tells you everything that was in the bag. So I've already got it all out of the bag and laid out, so I'm going to go over it real quick with you. So we can take some of the confusion away. So one of the things in the bag was a smaller bag. Several smaller bags. One of the bags has 5 screws in it. These 5 are the ones for the prop hub. Okay, now this is important, guys. Really pay attention to this, because this one's going to kill you. Ask me how I know. So this is not going to fit together all the way when you put it together. Okay, it's going to be, you're going to put the prop on like this, and then you're going to put this piece on, and there's going to be a small gap. You aren't going to be able to pull that gap closed with the screw. And if you try, you're going to snap the head off that screw. And then you're going to have to dig it back out of the plastic in here so that you can use one of the spare screws. Now, why do you think they give you 2 extra screws? This is why. So you're going to probably have to, take a Dremel tool and get this flashing off the prop. It's not a lot of work, guys, but just you know, there's a mold flashing right here on the edge on both sides of this prop, and that might be what's holding it up. So check that. You know, maybe just take a quick. You could do it with hand sandpaper too if you want. You don't have to use a Dremel tool, but a file will work. You know, but you're going to want to get that flashing off of there, and you want to keep test fitting this and figuring out what's holding it up. It seems to flush up nice in the front plate. It's the back plate that has the gap. Okay, so there's a slight gap in the prop right there. So something's preventing that from going all the way down. It could be the flashing. It might just be, you know, there's a knurling here. I don't think that's it, but just take a good look at it and just keep working it until you get that gap filled. You know, it should sit all the way down. You know, like I said, you're not going to pull that down with the screw. You're gonna break the screw off. So, and when you're putting the screws in, don't just crank it in. You know, go in a turn, bring it out, go back in a turn and a half, come back out, go in a turn and a half more, back out. Just keep working it in slightly at a time, a little bit at a time. Let it clean the threads as you're going in. Don't just try to screw it in. You're going to snap a screw head off, and then you're going to be you're going to be spending way more time trying to fix this mistake than building the rest of the airplane. So just be very careful of that. You know, I've already been down this road. I've put a lot of these kind of props together, and I've been down this road, and I can tell you for a fact that if you just try to screw this in one screw without backing it back out, and then try to pull that gap together, you're going to snap a screw head off, and then you're going to be spending a lot of time trying to fix that problem. So make sure you do that. It's going to be a lot easier. You'll be a lot happier in the long run, trust me. Okay, so that's the first part of what's in the bag, are those 5 extra screws, and that's all. That's just for the prop. Okay, well, there's three. You need 3 screws. There's 2 extra. They're all in this bag. I left them in that bag. That's separate. Okay, so now I've laid out the rest of the screws. So you have the screws that put the control horns on. You got 9 control horns, 9 backs, and they use 4 screws per control horn. Okay. Now, at first glance, it's going to look like there's 2 different sizes of these screws for putting this stuff together, but there's actually 3 different sizes. So you're going to want to separate those out because when you put the control horns on, the short screws are always on all of the surfaces are going to be used for the back 2, the ones that are closest to the middle of the control surface, not the edge. See, everything's tapered, so the outer or inner edge, however you want to say it, but the edge that's closest to the hinge is much thicker on all the control surfaces, and those are going to require the longer screws. So you're going to have to make sure that you put the long screws there and then the shorter ones here. And it appears that all the shorter ones are going to be this other size. So you have, I think there's 16. Yeah, there's 16 of the short ones. There's 8 of the middle length ones, and then 12 of the super long. Okay, so separate those out. Make sure you get those all separated out. That's how all the screws are laid out, and that's to put all the control horns on all the control surfaces. Okay, so that's a total of 36 screws. Okay, so there's 9 control horns. You're going to use all 9. You know, 9 times 4 is 36. So that's how that all all that math works out. So again, you've got 16 short, you've got 8 medium, and then 12 long. Okay? And that takes care of that part of the screws. Then there's 2 machine screws that are very similar in size, just a little bit bigger. And these 2 are to hold the cowl on. That's where there's a, right here at the back of the cowl, there's a hole here and a hole here on the bottom. And those 2 screws are to screw the cowl to the airplane. So that's what they're for. Then you've got 4 screws with a big head on them, like a washer head. These silver screws. These are the ones that hold the motor to the motor box. Okay? Then you have 4 black screws. 2 short, 2 long, with nuts. Okay? And those 4 screws are what you're going to use to attach the wing, the folding part of the wing, to the center section. Okay? That's what those 4 screws are for. You got nuts. And I believe these aren't lock nuts. I don't believe. So you're going to have to put either some Loctite, and if you're going to use Loctite, be very careful you're using the Loctite. Don't get on anything plastic. Loctite will destroy plastic. I don't know if you've run into that before, but if you drip a little bit of Loctite on plastic, it'll make it so brittle that it just snaps. So, or you can just use some contact cement like what they give you in the box. And we are going to use this, by the way. I said we were probably going to epoxy it. No, because the parts that we are going to put on with this, we may need to take off one day. So we are going to use this glue, the contact cement. So you're going to want to put a little bit of that on the nut. These screws can't be super tight because they're a hinge. So you're going to just put them on to keep the pin in place, to keep the bolt in place. But I don't think you're going to want to tighten it up to, you know, have a friction, because then the wing won't, it won't, the mechanism won't operate. So you're going to have to leave those loose, but you don't want the nuts to fall off. So you're either going to use the Loctite or some of this contact cement. I think the contact cement might work better. You just need to put the screw on and get that all set up, and then put a dab of that at the back side of the screw. You know, the back behind the nut, so that the nut can't thread itself off, you know, and fall off. There's no strength there. It's not a strength type pulling kind of thing. It's you know, it's just to keep the nut from falling off. So a little dab of that on the threads behind the nut is all you need. And that'll be fine. It's not going to fall off. And that's all you really need. And then the only other screw, well, there's 4 screws that hold the wing on. These big long ones. It's a pretty big screw, and they're long. And this is what holds the wing on. There's 4 of these. They're all the same length. That's how you bolt the wing to the fuselage. And then the last screw is, there's a single screw. It's a pretty fat one, and that goes through the center of the hubcap, you know, the prop hub, and the little plastic cap. And the cap snaps on pretty tight, but there's still a screw that goes through the middle of it, and that's what this one screw's for. And that takes care of all the bits in that bag. As far as, you know, there's 2 dummy exhaust pipes here that came in there. You know, you can use those or not, up to you. There's a pitot tube. I won't be using that, like I told you. You know, this kind of stuff just gets broken off on my models, or it pokes a hole in the model. When I put it in the car or in my plane rack, it ends up poking a hole in the plane, above it, below it, next to it, however. So this antenna and pitot tube I won't be using, but they're in the bag. And I think that's everything that's in the bag. So sort that all out, get everything situated so you know where it goes, and that'll help you, you know, in the build process, because now you know where everything's used, and you can do an inventory, make sure you got the proper number, and they're all, you know, the numbers of everything are here too. There's 4 tie wraps in the bag here, zip ties. They're probably used to hold the speed control to some part of the airplane. or it just might be used to hold some wires together. It's your, it's up to you how you want to use those and where you want to put them. There might be something in the instructions about where they are using them. I don't know. I didn't pay attention to that. You guys all know how to use a tie wrap, zip tie. Use them as you need them. They're in the bag, and then the hub was in the bag for the prop, and then the separate screws for the prop hub. So that takes care of that. So that's everything that was in the little bits bag. And again, it's inventoried, so you can check that if you want. Now I'm going to just touch on this real quick. This is all pre-start building. I'm just giving you some heads up of what we're going to be doing. So this actually glues into this, okay? And it also glues in the fuselage, both front and back here. This glues into the fuselage. And that's what holds the tail feathers on, and that's what the glue's for, and we're going to use, because if we happen to damage this, one of these pieces, it'll be removable if we put it on with contact cement. If I epoxy it on, it won't be removable. This is something I want to be removable, in case I have to ever replace these pieces. Or maybe the fuselage gets tore up, but these pieces are fine. Well, then I don't have to buy these again. I can reuse them. If I can get them off the airplane without damaging them, I can reuse them. So that's why I'm going to use contact cement. Normally, I don't, stuff that I want to stay on permanently, which is kind of the thing, I usually epoxy on. But in this case, I'm going to use this. Okay, so the trick to this, though, is you got to get the paint off. If you glue this to the paint, you're gluing the paint to the paint. And the paint doesn't stay on foam that well. So this stuff could potentially tear off the airplane because the paint's going to let go of the foam. And then the foam piece is going to fly off the airplane. So you're going to want to clear the paint. Now I'm going to take the paint on the vertical. I'm going to take all the paint off the bottom. And then just on the bottom edge of underneath this, you don't have to go all the way up to it. It's not that critical, but halfway up is plenty. Okay, so don't get too crazy. But if you've got bare foam halfway up the sides, okay, and the whole bottom, that's enough gluing surface. You'll be fine. Same thing with this. We're going to want to take the paint out of the bottom. I wouldn't worry about the sides too much on this. There's a very light coat of paint in there. This is going to be secured into the fuselage pretty well, and there's no paint there. So it's going to, once you clean that, you're going to be foam to foam in here. And that is what's really going to glue this to the airplane. You're going to probably want to take some paint off the bottom here. Now, the center section of is hollow. So really you're just going to want to take a little stripe of paint off here and here. And you can tell where it is because there's a little piece of the fuselage here and it's tapered. So you're really just going to want to get about a 1/4 inch of foam, bare foam here and here to glue to the thin pieces of fuselage it's going to sit on. Okay, so you don't have to worry about cleaning all of that off. You can just concentrate on right there at the edges. Stay inside the edge so that you don't, you're not showing. If you sand this stuff right to the edge, when you assemble it, you're going to have a white line right to the edge. So you never want to go right up to the edge. You want to stay back from the edge a little bit, so that where the painted area is hides the seam. Okay? I mean, if the paint goes over the seam on both pieces, there won't be any white foam showing through. So don't try to get it right to the edge. It's not that critical. It'll stay on. But you do want to get inside. And now you can stand as far inside here as you want in the middle. it's not necessary because this is all just a big void. So stay to the inside and work your way out. Don't go all the way to the edge. If you need to draw a line on it with a pencil or something, that's fine. You know, put it on the plane, draw a line, and then work back from the line. Stay off the line, and that'll be fine. But that's what's going to glue this on. So you're going to have to remove some paint. It's kind of a pain in the butt. There's several ways to do it. You can take a screwdriver, a flat-bladed screwdriver, and just kind of scrape against the foam, and that sometimes will tear it off. You can sand it off. You can sometimes tape, if you can get a piece of tape in there, a good sticky tape. You know, the stickiest tape you got. You know, just push the tape down on the paint and then pull it, and it'll pull the paint off. So there's that way. You can sand it. You can scrape it. You can take a Dremel tool with like a brush, you know, adapter piece on it, and you know, sand it, tear it off. However you need to get the paint off in the glue areas. You know, get the paint off, but be careful. Don't get the edges. Make sure the edges, you know, if you have to put a piece of tape over the edges, a non-tack or a very low tack, so you don't pull the paint off on the edges to protect them, do that so that you don't show the foam. You'll have a much prettier airplane when you're done if you protect those edges. Otherwise, you're going to have white showing everywhere, and it doesn't make for a good look. So that's what you got to do to get that on. But most of the holding power is going to be on this. So this is the critical piece to get the foam, the paint off. Is below here. You know, don't go all the way up to this edge. You don't need to, where it's recessed. Just stay below that and get the whole bottom would be good, and then the sides, you know, without getting up into the edge there. Get the sides as much as you can. You don't really have to go any more than halfway up. You'll be fine. And that should do it. You should be fine. Okay? And then the other thing I'm going to pre-do before I actually start putting bits on the plane is I'm gonna glue my motor box on the inside. Don't get any paint on the outside. This is very critical. It's tight fitting into the foam. So if you get any glue on the outside of your box, it's not going to go into the foam very well. So make sure you don't get any glue on the outside. But I'm going to take some 30-minute epoxy and I'm going to run it down all the four corners on the inside of the box. They've got it glued with CA. Plywood, I don't trust CA. So I just want to make sure my box is extra glued. So I'm going to run a bead of epoxy down all four corners. You know, drag it down there. I'm going to use a big long barbecue skewer so I can get all the way down in the box. And then I'm going to just stand it up and let it set. And once that's dry, I'm going to go ahead and bolt the motor to it with the 4 screws that came in the kit. And if you want to use Loctite on those, you know, it's probably a good idea because servicing this motor after it's in the plane is going to be very difficult. So, because you can't take the motor box back out and trying to unbolt this from this after this is glued in the airplane is going to be, it's not going to be fun. So I would suggest you, you know, I would use a little Loctite on those screws to install this, tighten the screws up, and so you're done. You won't have to deal with that probably ever again. You don't want those screws coming loose. It's going to be very hard to get them retightened once this is glued in the airplane. Okay, so that's where I'm going to stop right now. I've got plenty to do to I'm going to put the prop together and balance it. I'm going to glue my box. I'm going to bolt my motor to the box. I got to put 9 control horns on all the control surfaces using the 36 screws, and then we'll be back. So stay tuned. Okay, so I finished gluing the inside of this inside with the 30-minute epoxy, and I went ahead and mounted my motor, which is, you know, on the wood now. So we're ready to install this. I also put all the control horns on all the surfaces. So they're all ready to go in. I still have to hook the linkages up, but they're all been applied to the surfaces here. Sorry guys, I got a little ahead of myself and put these wires in, and I probably shouldn't have done that just yet, but it'll be alright. So the control horns are on here now. My elevators were rubbing the fuselage on the inside edge here, right in here. Let me put it up here, right in this area here. So I had to slice off a little bit of foam there and do a little sanding just to get it to clear the fuselage, because it was hanging up on the down elevator. Up elevator was fine. It was just down elevator wasn't going all the way down. They were rubbing the fuselage, so I trimmed these a little bit on the inside. I used packing tape, the clear packing tape, not the reinforced stuff, just the clear packing tape, to remove the paint inside here, which worked out beautiful. And I also used it to remove the paint on the rudder, which also, it just did a beautiful job of clearing the paint here and off the bottom here. So this is all ready to go, ready to glue this. So I had to do another modification, and this is all minor stuff, guys, but I just want to make you aware. So the wire on this servo in here is not long enough to clear the foam area. It's real close, but it doesn't quite clear. And it wasn't deep enough at the very bottom for the plug to sit in flush or pass flush with the foam, so it would go down into the airplane. So I had to just remove a little more foam right there so that there was access for the plug. And there's a close-up picture of that. And then inside the fuselage, they want you to run the wires down through there, but there's no access to it. Now, inside the fuselage, and you can see in this picture here, that there's a slit at the very top of the point. So a narrow slit there, and I ran the wires through there, which meant I had to cut a hole back here. And that's what this looks like. So that gave me the access I needed to send both the elevator, the two elevator wires to one. They're already wide, and the rudder wire down the fuselage, down the inside of the fuselage, to get it to the receiver. So that's how I handled that. I think I've also attached the outer wings. Let me just kind of set this in here for a second. I attached the outer wings to the center section with the bolts supplied. Now, again, there's two long ones. They're black bolts, so they blend in with the blue paint very well. You don't see them. But the long ones are on the main pivot, okay? And then the shorter black one is the one that the jack screw hooks to, which is what runs the wing up, runs up and down to force the wing to open and close. And again, make sure you do not tighten those up. You know, put something on the thread so the nut, you know, won't come off of it, but it has to be free. Okay, it's very important that those don't have any kind of drag on them. There's been reports, I'm hoping they fixed that by now. It was 6 years ago when they first came out with this, that people were burning up the mechanism My guess is because they were showing it off and ran it up and down 6 times in a row, overheated it and burnt it up. But that may not be true. Regardless, I'm hoping that if that was an issue and they've fixed it, because 6 years, 7 years, they should have, you know, come up with a better mousetrap for that. But I haven't any problem with mine. I've cycled them up and down twice, but with long cool down periods. You know, I put them up, I waited 10 minutes, put them back down, unplugged everything for a while, and then went back and I cycled them again. Same thing. I made sure there was a 10-minute wait between the cycle up and down. I'm just being extra safe in case there's an issue with them overheating. I don't want to run them up and down, you know, in the same swipe. You know, if I'm going to show it off at the field, I'm going to do it the same way. I'll you know, they'll already be up, and I'll put them down for them, and then vice versa. If I'm going to do that, but I'm not going to just run them up and down. I don't advise that. It's, you know, probably not a good idea. The retracts work fine. They go up and down fine. They do their rotate. Nice big wheels. They're oleo shocks on the struts. I am having a slight issue, and I haven't played with it. When I first put the gear down, the gear doors open, which are on servos. They're still hooked to it with strings, which I haven't figured out why they did that, but they are servos. And there's 2 servos, one on each side. So there's 4 servos operating the 4 doors. But they popped right open. The gear went down. That was great. And then I put the gear back up, but the doors didn't close. So I haven't figured out that yet. I'll get into that further when I get it finally finished, and I'll investigate that. There's a pretty easy fix for that. I can just put a different sequencer on the servos, since they are servos, to operate the doors independently of the gear, and that probably will work fine. I mean, the real beauty of this setup is that the gear doors stay open when the gear's down, so I don't have to worry about timing there. They're going to open and stay open. The gear will go down and everything's fine. The up might be an issue depending on if the second sequencer that I installed, if I can't get this one to work correctly, if the timing's not long enough to let this gear cycle all the way in before it commands the doors closed. So I'll let you know how I determine that. But yeah, the wing mechanism works fantastic. But again, I can't stress it enough that those bolts, when you put the nuts on it, cannot be tight. They have to stay completely spinnable loose, so that the mechanism can, because both of them have to rotate around the pin, you know, the bolt, and they have to be free. Okay, so you can't tighten that up at all. You know, it's got to be tight, you know, just loose in there. It spins freely, it's loose. If it doesn't spin freely, you know, keep screwing the screw through there, the threads in and out and stuff till it cuts its own little. And then when you finally put it to rest, put it in a spot where it's the loosest. You know, when you're spinning it around, if it gets tight in one spot and then gets looser, when it gets loose, leave it there. Just leave it loose. Leave it. Make sure that works freely, so that the jack screw can open and close the wings without any extra stress on it. And hopefully they'll work forever. You know, and like I said, 6 years ago, on the 1600 size plane, they were having a problem with these overheating and failing. The smaller version, the 1200 with the folding wings, there were no reports of an issue with them overworking. So my guess is that these wings are bigger, heavier, and it was just too much load for that mechanism. So they've probably come up with a better one, a stronger one for this plane. Like I said, they've had 6 years to fix it, so I'm assuming they did. Now another thing, and I'm going to change it, but just so you know, and I don't know if they did this because they wanted you to have more aileron authority, or if the guy that was installing it just has no idea what a Corsair does as far as the flaps go and didn't know any better. But they have it wired where the aileron and the most outer flaps. There's 3 segments to the flaps on a Corsair. The 2 inner segments work together off of one servo, but the outer segment's separate. And they have it wired with the aileron instead of with the flaps. So you have the 2 inners on flap servo. The 2 outers are both on aileron. That's the way they have it. They have a 4-wire Y connector, a 4-wire Y connector, and they've got the outer panels, the aileron and the flap working together, which is going to give you a lot of aileron authority and cut down your flap authority. But it's totally not scale. That's not the way the real plane is. So I'm just going to very simply take the 4-wire wire connector apart and move the 2 servo wires going to the outer segments, the outer flap segments. I'm going to take the whole thing off. Actually, I take that back. I'm going to take the ailerons out of the plug and put them on their own plug, so that the ailerons work independent of the flap segments, and then use the 4-wire. I'm going to unplug the aileron from the 4-wire and add the outer flap section to the 4-wire, and then the flaps will all work. All 3 segments on each side will work together, and the ailerons will be separate as ailerons. And that's how I'm going to do mine for the Maiden. And I'm pretty sure these are pretty good size ailerons, and they have a lot of throw. I actually increased the throw to the maximum. So I put the aileron clevis in the very lowest hole, the closest to the base of the aileron, until I test it, to get maximum throw. And if that's not enough throw, we'll go from there. But I'm pretty sure that's going to be fine. It should have a very nice roll rate, a very stock scale roll rate, probably a little faster, and that's plenty. But that's what I did. You guys can leave it the way it comes if you want. We have 2 segments of ailerons, especially if you want this thing to be have way more roll authority, then by all means do it that way. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to set it up to be scale correct, and then I'll make, if that's not enough, I'll make that adjustment later. But for the Maiden, I'm going to have the flap the 3 on each side, total of 6 flap segments working together, and the ailerons separate. On the bottom of the elevator, the tape, the packing tape took some of the white off, but not very much. That paint's really stuck on there, so I'm going to leave it. You know, if the paint is on there that good, then it's good enough. I mean, I'm sure that it's going to hold on there. You know, like I said, I did. So there'll be some foam area that's going to contact and glue right to the bare foam, and some of it's going to be still to the paint. But the paint is on there so good, I don't think it's going to be a problem. I mean, I tried to get that paint off, and it wouldn't come off. You know, I mean, I took that tape and I ground it down into the foam, and then ripped it, and it didn't come off. All the rest of it came out beautiful. It took it right off. So the tape idea worked fine. But on the bottom of the elevator, the white paint is really stuck to the foam. So, like I said, I got about half of it off. That was good enough. I kept trying to get the rest of it off. It wouldn't come off. And I quit. After about 4 tries, I just said, okay, you know, that paint's on there good enough. We're good. So now I'm going to glue the tail fins on, glue the motor box in, and do the final setup. And then we'll get back and I'll go over any final assemblies, any kind of finalizing that needs to be addressed. But no other issues than that. The hole back here where the wires had to go, you know, I had to dig a hole into it. There was no place for these wires to go. I don't know where they wanted, unless they wanted you to run it down through the mechanism, you know, the tail wheel retract mechanism. I don't want to do that. That idea doesn't appeal to me at all. When I looked on the fuselage and saw that area where there was a relief, you know, a hole, a elongated slit, that looked like the best choice to me. And so I started digging around back here at the very leading edge of the, and you saw that in the picture. And I was able to just take my knife and cut in there and relieve a lot of it, and then I just took my forceps and went in there and just pinched the foam and pulled it out until I got access, and then I just used the go-get-em wire and ran the wires through that hole, and that seemed to work fine. So that's how I did it. You guys can do whatever you want, but I think that's the best choice there. Came out fine, looks good. So so yeah, that's where we're at, guys. So let me get on with the build. There's really not much more to do, and then I'll give you my final thoughts and any final. One other thing I'm going to have to deal with yet, and I haven't figured out what I'm going to do with that, and I'll touch on that at the end. But where the wires go when the wing folds, they don't have a clear path from them to go to the outer segment to the inner segment. So I'm going to have to figure out how I want to do that. I haven't figured that out. So right now the wires are just hanging out of the bottom of the wing. I don't know if I'm going to poke a hole. I really don't want to. The problem is that that big hinge pivot point is glued right to the foam where these wires come through, and I really don't want to damage the foam in that area. I want all the strength I can get in that mechanism, so I really don't want to cut right there. So we might have to move the wires. I'm actually thinking about maybe going inboard a little bit to one of the hinges on the door and running them inside through the door for the retract in through there. I'm thinking that's going to be the best choice to give me the access I need, and the flexibility of the wires, because obviously the wires have to move somewhat when the wing hinges, so they have to have some room to move, and I'm thinking that might be the best place to give them a little slack. I don't know yet. I'll let you know when I finish it. Not a big issue, but that's the one I'm struggling with right now, as far as how do I want to do it. So let me get back to it. I'm going to glue all this stuff on now, hook up the rest of my controls, mount the wing, and then and then put the motor in, do my final assembly. So, and then we'll finish it up. So stay tuned. I'll be right back. Okay, so here's the final assembly. Got my tail surfaces glued on. Everything's wired, hooked up. We're all set to go here. Just want to go over some last minute things I was talking about in the video that I want to touch back on now and give you some final thoughts. So the propeller. So what I did was I took a Dremel tool and I ground down where the seam is for the the flashing, and then I sanded just by hand all the way around, and then I test fitted each blade and made sure that the backing plate came up tight, and it did. Everything's fine there. And then I balanced it. Make sure you balance it. Okay, don't just assume that these blades are the same weight. They're not. This was off by quite a bit. So because it was off so much, I actually used clear paint, that Duplicolor Perfect Match Protective Clear Coat. Get it at the auto parts store. Duplicolor. No rattle ball in the can. It doesn't. You can shake it all you want. There's no rattle ball in it, so it doesn't need to be mixed. It's been safe on everything I've sprayed it on so far. On the foam, on the prop, whatever you want to paint with it. So that's what I did on the prop. It did. Once I got the flashing off of it and sanded it a little bit, the back hub went together fine. So that took care of that. Again, do not try to tighten those screws and pull it in. You're just going to snap the screw off. Trust me, been there, done that. You don't want to do that. Okay, so next I want to go over. So I probably have my motor box slid in a little farther than the picture shows in the book, and I'm gonna put it up here and I'm gonna zoom in. So if you look, and I put my speed control right here, and that's what the tie wraps are for. So I tie wrapped it top and bottom here, ran the wires down inside the box, okay, and through inside into the plane. It's a very long lead, so that went right through the box. I put it in through the top because I thought it would be easier to just lift the wire up top and slide the battery in underneath it. So that's how I did it. You can orientate it any way you want, not the box, but the wires. Okay. Again, make sure the letter S on the panels. Okay, you want the S facing up. Okay, so make sure you have the S facing up. And then, so I have it, so let me turn this around so you can see that I have the box slid in a little farther. If I can get it in the frame here. So as you can see, the cutout there in the box, that oval hole in the side of the box there, yeah, part of it is covered up. I think if you look in the picture, they have that whole hole exposed. I pushed it in a little farther than that. I wanted the prop in a little bit closer to the cowl than that, so I slid the box in a little farther than they show in the picture. And that was just to get the gap off the front closer. Now, so if you look here, I set the, well, I'll zoom back in a little bit. I set the motor in inside the cowl here a little bit. Okay, and that's and I did that just to get it a little more realism, and I also wanted this edge here, this part here, okay, just barely sticking outside here. Now I could have cut it back, but I decided I'd rather just slide the motor back in a little bit. So I just slid when I glued it in, I slid it back a little bit and got this just sticking out a little bit farther than the actual cowl itself. And then with it on the plane, in the correct orientation, okay, the motor is centered in the hole pretty well. I don't know if I can make that look a little better if I do this. Well, that's interesting. While it's recording, I can't turn the light on? I could turn it on before I start the recording. Now, so the motor's centered in there, and there's plenty of room around it. And I have it so the prop hub is just barely sticking out from that ring. Okay, so the hub is, sticking out. So the prop hits here way outside of this, which is also way outside of this, and that gives me some room. If I have to go to a prop one day that's not on that hub, the prop's going to go in closer. I might have to trim this back a little bit, but I should still clear this. And that was the whole plan. So that's how I put it on, and that seemed to be okay. All right. Well, I got it in. Let me So the wires on the wing fold. So here's the mechanism here. Let me zoom in a little more here. Okay, so the mechanism is in the wing itself, right here. And the wires are going through. I'll turn this up here so you can see. So the wires are going through there, and I've got them routed through the gear door. And I'm going to give you a close-up shot of that right here. And so what that did was that let the you know, I put like an arc in the wires, and then I tie wrapped the wire tight against the, as you can see in the picture, up against the flap servo wire to pull it down, and in with that arc, when the wing goes down, they just slide underneath the gear doors and slide in with it. So they stay tucked up against the bottom of the wing really pretty tight. Sometimes I just reach under and just kind of give them a little you know, up push, and that finishes sliding them right back in. But they're doing really well. I'm pretty happy with that setup. You know, if you really want to spend some time, you could probably cut holes in the wing, reroute the wires back into the wing, the outer section, and then put a hole in the main wing and send them in that way, and still get them into the gear compartment. That's the wires are going to end up inside the landing gear cup, or you know, the retract recess in the wing. And so that's how I did it. You know, I'm pretty happy with it. It's working very well. The mechanisms are working great, and it goes down, and the wires just go right inside there. You know, remember, guys, that you're really only going to cycle the wings with the wheels down. Okay, I mean, you're not going to, you know, you're not going to have the gear up and then operate the wings. Okay, I mean, you know, I have a fail-safe on mine. My wings won't fold if the gear's up. So if I'm flying around, you know, it's a little programming in the radio. So when I'm flying around, if I accidentally hit the wing switch, nothing's going to happen. If the gear's up, nothing's going to happen. If the gear's down, I still have a second switch I have to hit to arm the wing fold mechanism, and when I do that, then the wings will fold. So I have two safeties on it so that I can't accidentally fold the wings in flight. The gear has to be down and locked, and the second activation switch has to be switched, and then I can fold the wings. So I can't do an accidental wing fold. That won't happen. Now, I did touch on the gear doors, the sequencer not working, and it works fine. What it is that, and I don't know if it was designed that way or not, but if you cycle the gear door, the gear, quickly and don't let it do its full thing, the doors won't operate. They'll stay open or close, whichever, more likely open though. So you just have to let it run its course. You know, put the gear up, let it run through its cycle, put the gear down, again, let it run through its cycle. The doors will close, you know, and they do close with the gear down. So the doors are closed all the time. They open, they let the gear swing either up or down, and then they close again in both directions. A real Corsair, the doors would stay open. These are closing, and it's not a big deal. I don't mind that. If you want the scaleism of it, you can always order a gear door sequencer from you know, FMS or somebody. Make sure you get the one for the P47, because the gear doors stay open on the P47 also. and then when the gear goes down, the doors will stay open, and then when you put the gear up, the doors will close. And if you want that scaleism, it's a pretty easy way to go get around that. You know, you just take the sequencer off the retract and mount and plug your because there are servos, and there's only 2 servos. Now, I thought there was one on each door. There's not. There's a bent wire, you know, like a big U-shaped wire, and the wire's attached to the servo arm on the one side. And when the arm rotates to pull the doors closed, it rotates the other side, which pulls the outer door closed as well. I think it's the inner doors that are on servos and the outer doors are on the wire. The inner doors are on the wire also. Now, I recommend you bend that wire down quite a bit, because what's happening is the doors will open and they'll go past straight down. And if they get too far past straight down, when the string tries to pull the door closed, it might just pull it open and flat up against the wing, and then it's going to tear the hinge, because they're using those pin style hinges. It'll pull the hinge out, you know, out of the foam. It'll rip the foam a little bit, pull the hinge out. So bend your wires so that the doors stay as vertical as possible. What's going to happen, and it's okay, it won't hurt anything, when the doors close, they're going to close tighter, and the wires are going to bend a little bit because the doors are so tight that it's going to flex the wire, and that'll be fine. That won't hurt anything. So just find that magic spot, bending the wire, to get the doors to close tight, but not open so far as they go way past center, you know, straight down. Because if they go too far open, like I said, the string will pull it, you know, to try to close it, and it won't pull it closed. It's going to pull it like laterally, which is going to cause it to open all the way up against the bottom of the wing, and then you're just going to rip the hinge out of the foam. So be careful of that. Some minor adjustment, guys. Nothing, you know, very simple stuff here. There's nothing major going on here. It's a very simple, just bend the wire a little bit, take a little pair of pliers and give it a little bend, and you'll be fine. I did fly. I said I was going to change it. I did not. I did leave the outer flap panel as an aileron, and I'll tell you why. Because it requires a replacement servo, or you know, a reverse servo, or a servo reverser, and I didn't have either of those here handy, and I really didn't want to tear it apart. So for the main, I decided I would just fly it and see how it does. And then if I didn't like it, I'd switch it. Instead of, originally I was going to switch it because I wanted it to be more scale. I think the roll rate is good with the double panel. I think it's going to be a little lax in roll rate if you correct this outer flap panel and make it a flap, and don't leave it as a dual aileron, because right now you've got the 2 aileron panels, and then the 2 outer flap panels are also ailerons, and that provides a very nice roll rate, which you can see in the maiden flight video, which is already up. Yeah, check out the maiden flight, watch the roll rate. I did a couple of vertical rolls, and I did a couple of axle rolls, level flight, and that's full stick. So the roll rate's nice. It's not a drill bit or anything. It's a very nice roll rate. I'm very happy with it. So I'm going to leave these outer panels as ailerons, the outer flap panels. I know that's not correct, but honestly, when the plane's sitting on the ground and the flaps are up and the ailerons are all straight and everything, nobody's going to know that they're not flaps. You know, everybody's just going to assume that, you know, you got 3 flap panels there, and they're going to work as flaps. But you're the only one that's going to know the difference unless you operate them in front of everybody. So I'm afraid if I took that extra aileron away that the roll rate would get very slow, too slow, because the roll rate now is pretty good, and I just don't think it's going to roll as nice. And it's just more work than I want to put in it right now to change it. So, a little bit lazy. Sue me. But I'm very happy with the way it flew. It flies amazing, guys. Very happy with the way it flies. That's pretty much it on the build. Everything else, all went together well. I did put a piece of tape on the hatch here so that I can get this open. And it looks like I screwed up when I put it back on. And the tape, oh no, the tape is here. I couldn't even see that. I hid the tape so well I couldn't even see it. So the tape, I put a piece of tape right here in the front. Yeah, this comes off pretty tight too. So you got plenty of room in here for the battery and everything. And like I said, I've got the wire sticking out here so I can actually just pick the wire up and slide the battery under the wire, which I thought was going to be easier than to keep it from being pinched by the battery. So that's how I did that. And there's plenty of room in here for all your stuff. And if you want to add anything like a gyro or anything, you got tons of room in here to add anything you want to add, no problem. So just a super great airplane, guys. Very, very happy with it. It flies great. It looks great. It sounds great. Oh my God! Wait till you listen. I didn't doctor the flight video, and I'm sorry the flight video isn't better. I was all set to go out and film it with my good camera. I had the camera on a hat that I wear on my head, and the wind caught the hat. It was pretty windy that day, and it knocked the camera off the hat. Well, my hat off my head. The camera hit the ground and broke. So one of my buddies videoed it with his cell phone. So unfortunately, the video is pretty decent, but that's why it's not better, guys. I'm sorry. I got a new camera, which what we're filming on now. I bought the insurance on the camera, and they sent me the money so I could buy another camera. So I bought another camera, and that's what we're filming on right now. That's what gives me the ability to do the zoom in and out and stuff, because the camera I used to use didn't have that capability. And so that's it, guys. That's pretty much it. I'm very happy with the airplane. I'm very happy with the way it went together. There's the only real issue I've got is the landing gear. I think it uses a string kind of mechanism again, and I haven't had a chance to get in there and look at it. The right landing gear on the second flight did not rotate. It came out of the wheel well flat. So I had one come down and rotate, and the other one just stayed flat. So I got one rotated straight and the other one flat. And I couldn't land it that way. Well, it's flat this way and this way. And when it went up, it's supposed to rotate, and the one didn't rotate. It stayed flat. So I couldn't land it that way, so I had to do a wheels up landing. It's a beautiful, beautiful landing. Didn't even scratch it. The prop I cut the prop just before touchdown. The prop just bumped the ground, stopped. It slid in on its belly perfect. It only slid about 3 feet. It came in really slow. It's got great slow handling characteristics. And it just slid about 3 or 4 feet and stopped, and there wasn't even a scratch on it. Didn't damage anything. So I haven't taken the gear out. I haven't had time to take the gear out and look at it. I think I took a quick look, and there looked like there's a string inside, or maybe a small cable, a very fine cable, like maybe fishing leader, steel fishing leader line, real fine line that's in there that was probably wrapped around a screw that as it moves it pulls the string, and that's what rotates it. It's a spring-loaded mechanism, so the spring is automatically trying to straighten it, flat to go up in the plane, and I think the little cable pulls it, rotates it when it comes down. So I have to look at it. I'm not really too concerned about it. Guys, this airplane's so beautiful that even if I have to buy a set of like the FMS Corsair landing gear and put it in the plane, I'll do that. That's worst case scenario. If I can't fix this one, or if I decide that I'm really not happy with these after a few more flights, I may change out the landing gear. But and there's a couple of choices. You can get the free wing ones. They're both. That's a 1600 millimeter plane, same size as this, so the gear should be the right size for the plane. And then you just put them on a standard, regular gear door sequencer, where the doors will operate in timing with the gear, and you'll be fine. So that's a simple fix if that's what I need to do. So we'll. I'm sure I'm going to do more videos on this when I get a chance. Right now I'm busy with other airplanes, going to a show, so I can't spend any more time fine-tuning this one. But when I do, I'll put up another video. But so far, guys, I'm super happy with it. It came out beautiful. It flew beautiful, and I am very happy that I finally got this particular Corsair, because this is the color scheme I like. This with the white on the bottom, in the middle sections there, okay, and then the outer wing panels are the light blue. There goes the prop again. So that's the light blue, and then the whole top of the plane is the dark blue. And I absolutely just love this paint scheme. So, so yeah, guys, I can't tell you how happy I am with this airplane. I love the way it flies. It flew beautifully. Very, very smooth. Very, just flew fantastic. And I got good flight times. I think I got it 7 minutes. Without trying to extend. I purposely landed early. I didn't want to, on the maiden flight, overextend a battery and take the chance of overextending a battery. But I still think I got 7 minutes, and just amazing. So happy with that. I can't even begin to tell you guys. I really love it. So that's my final on the build here. That pretty much covers everything. The prop, the box, the speed control where I mounted it with the tie wraps on the side of the box. There's plenty of room inside the cowl, guys, to get it in there. The retract doors and the retracts. The wing wires slide in with that arc I have in them. And again, that you saw the picture. And then that was really the only issues I wanted to go over with you guys after the build. There was nothing else, no surprises, nothing I didn't already cover. I think I've got it all covered. And if you were thinking about buying this airplane, I highly recommend it. I have no buyer's remorse whatsoever on this one. I love it. I absolutely love it. I just love looking at it. But it flies fantastic. So, but it's just a beautiful bird. And listen, if you're worried about transporting it, this is the way you want to do it. You put a pillow in your car, like on the back seat of the car, and you just set this thing on the pillow on the back seat of your car, just like this. This is a very small footprint, guys. Because the gear's up. The wings are up, so it's it's only about a little over 2 feet across here, I think, maybe, and the length is probably 3.5 feet, maybe, just over 3 feet, and it's only about 18 inches tall. And you could just set it on a pillow, just like I'm doing on my table here, with the wings up like this and the gear up, and it's a pretty small footprint. One other way you could do it, if that doesn't fit too well, you could stand it on its nose on the seat. Same thing, gear up, wings up, but just stand it up on its nose, maybe on the front seat, retract the back, recline the seat a little bit and set it against the back seat so the tail doesn't hit the roof, and just put it in that way with the nose on the front seat. And you could take it that way. That's the way I put it in my car, and it does fine like that too. So pretty easy to transport it. When you consider how big this airplane is, with the wings up and the gear up, it's a pretty small footprint. So it's pretty easy to get it in the car. So, all right, guys. So that's going to do it. I'm all done here. I hope you enjoyed this. Hit the like button, please. Subscribe if you haven't. Comments at the bottom. If you have any questions about how I did anything, feel free. Comments at the bottom. I'll answer all the questions you have. And like me here on YouTube. Like me on Facebook. And we'll catch you on the next review. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.